Hey, welcome back to Mocktails with Marina. I'm your host, Marina, and today I'm going to be kind of delivering you a personal episode. I'm going to be peeling back the layers on how this first year of business with the modern mocktail specifically was not just a career move, it was a healing process. So if you're feeling drained, stuck, or questioning whether you can actually build a business that serves you, this episode is for you. This episode is basically going to be about burnout. Not the kind where you just need a vacation, but the kind where your soul is tired. The kind that makes you realize something fundamental has to change. The kind where no amount of self-care is going to fix the fact that you're completely disconnected from yourself. I'm talking bottom of the barrel burnout. And by the way, when I was in this state actively, I didn't even realize how exhausted I was because I kept telling myself that I was lucky to have a job or be in any situation that had brought me to that burnout. But the thing is, my last job, that wasn't the problem. The last industry I was there are many things that I can take a look at and blame and say, this is what definitely brought me more stress. But at the end of the day, having a list of a bunch of things that are fine, the pay is fine, people fine, we did these things fine, it works. Fine is dangerous because fine, when things are just fine, that keeps you stuck. Fine is the thing that stops people from ever reaching great. Fine makes you settle for less than what God actually created you for. The reason you were here on earth, whatever your purpose is, it is the thing that binds us to it. So all of that being said, anything that has brought me to burnout, each individual specific thing, weren't terrible in and of themselves, but they were all straws, and eventually there was a final straw, right? And the thing is, getting to that point where I broke. I needed to break up with what we were doing in order to move from fine to great in life. So when we finally got the momentum in our spirit and our soul to jump off the scary cliff of having the last W-2 job and moving into being 100% business owners without anything else to fall back on, I had no idea in that moment how much I was about to learn. I knew it was going to be jumping off a cliff of not knowing, right? Because if you've never done that before in life, it's something that is impossible to describe. Starting a business, jumping off a cliff, not having a savings, not having any of the things that people would recommend normally to get your business started, we still found a way to make it work. And it helped us learn so much about business and, most importantly, our lives and what we wanted to make of it. So grab a drink and get comfortable because we're going to talk about what it really takes to create a business that actually fuels you. So to provide a little bit more context, before I was owning this current business, the Modern Mocktail with my husband, before I was even thinking about marketing or operations or consulting, I was a dancer. And not just any dancer, I made it pro. I was a decorated athlete and performer. I flew dozens of times each year for performances all around the country. I had trained for years. I competed. I performed on some of the biggest stages, and I did it. And I remember back then in those old Instagram posts, looking back, talking about what a big, scary leap it was to go pro back then. And now when I look back, that was nothing because little did I know, I actually ended up going back into employment after that. And of course, that happened to a lot of different people because of the pandemic, right? If for us live entertainers, that was the end of the world. And that experience actually launched one of my businesses. It launched my second business. So that's when I moved from my first business being the professional dancer. I was an independent dancer, so that meant that I produced shows, like my own shows, or I would jump onto cabaret style shows that basically would hire by act. So then you would just like submit your acts, and then if someone wanted you to be a part of their show, you'd get paid per act plus tips. And the point of that was I went from that model, being very used to how do I make cash and how do I make money in person by creating real life experiences, to second business being in an online format for teaching people, online format for interacting, right? And that experience was very beautiful for what it was in that moment, but I ended up moving back into an employed W-2 situation because I felt so disconnected at the time from the pandemic. So because of that and becoming sober, I knew things needed to be very different. And after having worked at a non-alc establishment previously, even though I was not sober at the time, the idea came all the way full circle. And that experience launched this third business. And I wanted to set all that up because that first leap was scary. The first time I quit my comfy W-2 job with a 401k and all the fluffy things, like that felt like it should have been security, but it never made me feel secure. So taking the leap, not understanding how it was working, did the thing. At the time, it made sense. Again, pre-2020 world. We live in an entirely different world, entirely different economy now. Things are very different. So it's like learning all the things over again. And not only that, but didn't do it alone. Luckily, got to do this all with my husband, which is both a blessing and an incredible learning lesson, right? About what you can do when you combine your forces, assuming you can find the right collaboration style, right? And on top of this, we both wanted to dive headfirst. We did not want to have a day job hold us back time-wise, or resource-wise, in the sense of like not just holding up our time, but holding up our attention. At the time, we had to spend $10,000 on emergency vet bills. We had just gotten married. So we had to figure out how to survive in our business from day one. Like we couldn't be like, okay, well, it would be nice if this could cover us and let us have a nice transition from W-2. Like, no, we left W-2 and then started the business. So we did this on hard mode, and that leap, having done that leap twice from two different perspectives, and from both perspectives, having an ability to fundraise and having an ability to monetize quite instantly. However, that doesn't change the fact that when you're in that mode of go, of starting something, it's very easy to put yourself in a burnout cycle. And that's what I had done the first time around because I was alone, even though I did have a coach. I genuinely believe that you are so much stronger in partnerships. I'm not saying all businesses need to have partnerships, but the best ones definitely have more than one person carrying all the weight, because there is a lot of weight, especially once you start to have employees, you have people depending on you. It's a lot of weight if you're not used to it. And if you're not used to sharing that weight with others, it can cause even more friction. So all of this being said, there's a lot of reason for that heavy weight that could occur during that leap with burnout, especially if you are trying to survive from day one. Because of course people love to talk about bootstrapping businesses, but let me tell you what that actually looks like. Okay. So, and this isn't to scare people. This is number one, it's relatable. You're not crazy if you've gone through this. But number two, if you're thinking about going through a business, before I say all of these things, I don't want this to scare you. I just want you to know that this is like one of those hero journeys. It puts you through a dark night of the soul. It puts you through battling some demons to get over your personal stuff so that you can be seen, not be afraid to be seen with your business and your offerings, right? There's so much to this. So all of that being said, this is a call for a greater mission, and not to scare you. But that being said, it does feel like waking up every day was scary, because if we didn't secure clients, how are we going to pay rent? Or how are we going to pay for other bills, loans, old student loans, like all the things, right, that happen in life. Like that doesn't just stop. Although, side note, there are ways of kind of rearranging debts to make things a lot easier. We definitely did that. We also reconfigured some things in life. So we cut all of our expenses by 50%. Like we changed our entire lifestyle to really make the thing happen. So there was a lot of things to get used to that were different in that way. So that was a cool growth moment, I would say. But also, when you're bootstrapping a business, like, you have to listen to people deeply, because we couldn't afford to sell what we wanted to sell. It wasn't like, oh, let me put my Mona Lisa out that I've been thinking about forever. Like, no, we had to sell what people needed. So there were contracts that we took at first that weren't like my favorite tasks on planet Earth, but we did them to bridge the gap. And they taught us more about what we loved and what we didn't love, and what we could potentially outsource, but still be able to be kind of like a bridge for people to understand. Another thing about bootstrapping businesses is figuring out how to create long-term contracts. So we went through a period of doing one-off projects and doing a couple one-off projects with the same clients. Then from there, we learned how to turn things into retainers, how to turn things more into like programs or more customizable packages. So it wasn't like, we don't just sell, like, if you were like, what's your hourly rate for a consultation? I don't know. Depends. Like, who are you and what do you want to talk about? But when it comes to the types of packages that we provide in terms of the asynchronous support or the group programs that we do, all of these things came out of us understanding, okay, what things can bring stability to our business. So it was like figuring out what we could sell both short-term and long-term at the same time. That did feel like an Olympic mental event. Not going to lie. But in this Olympic mental event, we learned so much about what in the past had caused us so much pain to burnout. So here's where our business, and actually, like, even though, again, we have this stress of jumping off the cliff, just leaping into the unknown. However, leaping into the unknown allowed us to iron out any of the kinks that we had about any of the ways we had made money in the past. So it became blatantly clear very quickly, very instantly. We had to be very present. And once we figured out, okay, this is what people will pay for, this is what they won't, this is what we like to do, this is what we don't, we had to whittle down exactly what made sense. We went up against the market and validated our ideas, and that was validated through our ability to survive. And not only survive, but then we got to the point where we started to thrive. I will never forget the feeling of the first moment we secured enough contracts to cover all of our base bills. That was a beautiful month. And then shortly thereafter, we had our first 10K month. And then, sky's the limit. If you were to ask now, the recording of this podcast is happening on March 3rd, 2025. If you were to ask me how much money we're going to make by the end of 2025, I could pretend that I could project, but quite frankly, very beautiful, magical things keep happening. And it's very difficult for me to even give you an estimate, because I know what the bare minimum could be based on the contracts we have. However, the possibilities are now endless. And this is something that I couldn't even fathom what saying that sentence could feel like before, because when you're a W-2 employee, or you're stuck in the fear of, okay, I just need to pay my base expenses, and you're not thinking about how much more exponentially your time can grow in value, it's easy to feel small, and it's easy to be like, okay, how are you going to survive? Again, like I said, those first waking up every day with almost a panic attack feeling of, okay, what we have to maximize every moment of this day in order to get everything going. Sure, the first week feels a little scary, but after a while, you honestly just become accustomed to it. And the marker of success in our eyes, and what we've seen with our clients and our own experience, is no matter whether you know how something is going to work out, you get out of bed and you give it a shot anyway. Even if you don't know the answer to the question, even if you have no idea, you've never solved a problem quite like it before, you still go and do the thing. Grit is what determines the people who last the longest, just in general, in business, in life, all of the pursuits. And in my experience, because this episode is all about how I specifically healed from burnout, so your life could look differently, but just for my story, our fuel for grit was faith. So how faith carried us through the hardest year of our lives. How to even start? We prayed every morning, every evening, before every meal, before every car ride, before every flight. We prayed when we celebrated. We prayed when we struggled. We got down on our knees, surrendered ourselves to the process, and asked, God, what can we do today to provide value to those who are aligned with our mission of creating healthier third spaces? We were so specific. Please bring someone to me today that I can help. And somehow, every single month we made it work. Every single time we focused on that energy, it happened. We worried about our clients more than our own well-being. Partially because of God. We knew we were going to be taken care of. Our faith allowed us to find comfort in that. But also partially because we chose to cut our monthly expenses by 50%. We rearranged our entire lives. We started waking up at 5:30 in the morning, working out every day. Because when everything around you is uncertain, you have to take control of the things you can control. And for anyone else who, is picking up on what I'm putting down with faith here, one lesson that always keeps showing itself louder and louder is that it feels like God won't give you the resources that you need, that you have not shown responsibility for. So you're not going to get more if you haven't been responsible with what you already have. The law of attraction says the same thing. I mean, whatever belief system you come from, it's a repelling energy to not be the shepherd that you were supposed to be. If you can't be the caretaker of this money's not going to be attracted to you. Think of it like a little puppy. Puppy just needs to be taken care of. If you're not taking care of puppy and someone else or something else is being more motherly, loving, attentive, puppy's going to gravitate that direction, right? So anything in life that is energetic follows that same rhythm. So here are 4 lessons that I really felt deeply over the first year that helped me really heal that burnout. Number 1, I learned what I love and how I operate best. So I thrive on problem solving, creative freedom, and helping people who actually want my help. I love strategizing and designing operational frameworks. But the second I feel like I'm dragging someone along, it is a no for me. I'm super not into it. I don't have a poker face and I feel my attitude coming out. Which brings me to the second thing that I learned. I learned what I hate and why. I hate working with people who don't respect their own time and expect me to pull miracles out of thin air. I hate fixing other people's businesses for free. And I hate feeling like I owe anyone my energy just because I have expertise. That clarity helped me create real boundaries. And if someone was to be triggered by something that I said, you might not be an ideal client. But if you hear what I'm saying and you're like, yes, that's amazing, I appreciate that, and I want to learn how to do that in my business, then you are likely my ideal client. Which brings me to my third point. I set my own boundaries and enforce them. So it's one thing if I was to say, like, I don't take calls on Saturdays or Sundays, but then it's another thing to hold the boundary when a client texts or calls or sends an email and says, hey, can you hop on a quick call? Boundaries only work when you respect them first. And let me tell you, I had to learn that the hard way. So anytime I do work for clients on the weekend, I make it abundantly clear, even if they don't ask or anything. I'm like, hey, just so you know, I'm doing this on the weekend. Not that I normally, I just couldn't get you off my mind. I'm doing the thing. But here's the thing that I'm working on. Or I do the magical thing of scheduling the email to get sent out at 8 a.m. on Monday morning so that I have some boundaries and people don't expect that from me on the weekends because they just can't. I won't be able, like, I will disappoint them because I do not like working on the weekends. And the moment we have babies, I will refuse. I just won't. It just will not happen. So let's bring us over to point number 4 here. I saw where I had been allowing people to control me. So I have always been the type of person that has a hard time letting people in, but once I do, I'm vulnerable because I'm here to help, right? And this was a tough one for me because I've allowed many of my previous employers to take advantage of that. I would work long, hard, extra hours. That's why I could never, ever be salary employee ever again. And I had allowed a lot of space for burnout to happen because I was not respectful, because I really can't tell you why. Yes, I loved my job. Why didn't I back off? Why didn't I think of putting that energy into my own business? I was in the learning stages. That's why. So I want you to have that grace for yourself too. So I want to just throw something out there. Like, sure, there are users out there, but if you keep saying yes to things that drain you, like, that's on you. I had to own that. And if that's a problem you have, you should too. So that being said, those 4 lessons, the reason that they are so palpable to me now is because of the concept of radical ownership and the actual cost of being an employee. So that first year of our consultation business being about, like, it wasn't just about survival. It was actually also about actual ownership. I learned what it really meant to take responsibility for, like, life. And one of the biggest lessons I learned was that you do not fix other people's businesses for free. This seems so obvious. It's something that is extremely obvious when you are a business owner. But if you are not a business owner, you just work for someone. So you are their employee, especially if you're a salary. You need to make sure you have boundaries, or else you are fixing other people's businesses for free. Okay? Because here's what happens when you fix people's businesses for free. You're not just fixing their business. You're doing, like, personal extra work for them. Like, when you help someone level up their business, you're actually helping them level up as a person, which is super cool, but not super cool when you're doing that on an employee's salary. Like, you are being massively underpaid. Like, point blank, as a consultant, I am telling you right now, if you are helping someone with someone else's dream instead of your own, you are being massively underpaid. Unless you are going into employment with the right mindset. So here's what I mean. If you're an employee, use it wisely. So you are trading your time for money and skills. So get as much knowledge as you can. If you are an employee because you are gaining knowledge on the job, like you're essentially getting paid to learn, that is an amazing reason to be an employee. Love it. I would never trade my time as an employee for the things I learned on the job that I couldn't have learned in college, or would have super sucked if I learned as a business owner. Like, that would have cost a lot more. So that is a great reason to be an employee. Okay. But if you're constantly being asked to think like an owner while making an employee's salary, that's when you should consider consulting or starting your own business. You'll never be paid what you are worth as an employee. Now, if you're starting a business, choose your projects wisely. The wrong clients are going to drain your energy and they're going to make you hate your business, but the right clients are going to energize you. So do not chase money, chase alignment. So I can honestly and truthfully say, I have the receipts to back this up. We have been offered 2 multi-million-dollar deals over the past couple years. We could have had multiple kava bar chains by now, my friends. We have been offered by 2 different multi-million-dollar entrepreneurs if we wanted to co-own and start a really sick chain. We said no. So yes, we chose to live in a longer startup phase than we could have because we chased alignment. And let me tell you, heaven is possible on earth. You can make your reality much more beautiful, especially if you have faith and understanding in what alignment truly does mean to you. Which, side note, this is why all of our discovery phase launchpad people know, like, this is why we go so hard on, like, who are you as a person? Like, we're not even going to talk about your business plan until we understand, like, what kind of life you want to live, because we're not going to create something that goes against that. Like, we're not going to design something, even if you love something else about someone else's business, but it doesn't make sustainable, like, logical sense for you, we're not going to do it, because that's going to lead to burnout. And I've been there, done that. I've chased the shiny object syndrome, and it's not worth it, y'all. Like, I'm trying to save you time and money right now, which brings me to the next thing about the cost of being an employee. If you're burned out, pay attention to where your energy goes. Burnout isn't just about overworking. It's about constantly doing things that don't light you up. So audit all of the work that you do. What's fueling you, what's draining you, and adjust accordingly. If you feel you have to stay at your W-2 job and you want to be an entrepreneur, but you're stuck there, see what you can do to at least have tasks that are more meaningful to you. Like, even if you're not at a place for education, you're like, yo, I'm not learning anything here. Well, at least do tasks that, like, bring you joy so that you still have energy by time you're off of work. Do something to make that bridge a little bit easier to cross. If you feel underpaid, ask yourself, am I accepting this? If the answer is yes, raise your rates. Ask your boss for the raise if you still have the job. Charge for the value that you provide, not just the time you spend. So there are ways to have negotiations at your job as an employee, and there are ways of changing from an employee onto a management or an ownership team or a board capacity. There are ways that things can change. You just have to not be afraid of having the conversation, and you cannot undervalue yourself along the way. You have to ask yourself, what are you accepting? Because even if you're given a shitty raise and then you're like, but did you accept it? Like, yeah, I accepted it, but it wasn't as much as I wanted. But you accepted it. You accepted it. Like, you have to take responsibility for that. Even if it's not what you wanted. Like, that's what you did. If you're waiting for the right moment to start your business, stop waiting. The demand is here. The industry is shifting. The biggest regret I hear from people is, honestly, I wish I had started sooner. I wish I'd gotten over some shit sooner. After having multiple attempts of leaving W-2 just to come back to it, right? The time that stuck, the time we found success was when we jumped off the cliff. I am not a financial advisor. I'm not a lawyer. I don't give legal or financial advice. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not here to give you life advice. I'm just telling you what my life story was. If we did not jump off the cliff, I don't know mentally if I would have been able to build a business that was actually burnout proof. Because it had to be. Because we risked it all for it to be. When you have any bit of safety and security, it's easy to kind of go back on your word a little bit. And I know, there's plenty of reasons. Plenty of, something's always going on in global events. Side note, the world is not getting better or worse. The world is as it always has been. So Don't blame your life decisions on what's going on globally. I've watched businesses be started every year that I've been an entrepreneur, and I know businesses that have started every year that are still going. So there's always, there's plenty of like time options out there, but at the end of the day, it's like your heart and soul that chooses the timeline. And if you're holding yourself back out of fear, the timeline's going to extend. But courage is having fear, but facing it and saying, fuck it anyway. So I will never bet my family's future on a 401k again. I can guarantee you that. It's not security. It's not stability. W-2 is not what it's cracked up to be. Honestly, everybody I know in my family who has had a long-term job, I know of multiple people who worked for the same company for multiple decades and they did not get the retirement they were promised. Okay, so the only true security is knowing how to make money on your own. Because anything could happen. Any economic event, a health event could clear you out. Anything could happen at any time. So winning the lottery, it only works one time in a lifetime, right? But if you know how to make money, you could lose your money 10 times over and make it 12 times over again. So it's a skill that you're learning. You're not just, when you're building your first business or your 10th business, you're not just building what's in front of you. You're also building a skill set of continuously being able to be open to other opportunities of income potential. That's one of our favorite things to do. Side note, if you need help with this, again, inside of the Discovery Phase Launchpad and Moolah Boss, we talk a lot about what other revenue streams that you could start or expand. Because, side note, if you're someone who you're focused only on your drink sales to pay your bills, you're missing out on a million revenue streams. Like a bar, bottle shop, y'all, there's so much more you could be making money with there. So don't be sleeping on that. Okay. Final things that I really want to touch base on is reclaiming the parts that get buried. So when you are burnt out, and we're talking about building all these safeguards, cool. So you finally build this space for yourself so it doesn't feel like the world is collapsing in on you, right? You finally get your habits back. Maybe you're waking up early. Maybe you're working out every day now. Your business is finally coming together, but there's still something that feels not quite like you're out of Burnout City yet. So what is that thing that's missing? It's reclaiming the parts of you that had been buried by the burnout. So this may look like different passions you haven't touched in a while, creative interests. Maybe you used to paint and you haven't painted in years. I keep talking about being a dancer. I hadn't danced in years. I'd have little fun things with my husband right at home, but I'm saying publicly in I was a professional dancer. I hadn't done anything in 3 years until recently. Super exciting. You're going to be able to see some super fun things. I am relaunching my Marina Mars XOXO page. Yes, the original moniker, the reason marinamars.com is live, is here. That is going to be relaunching. So you're going to actually get to see my kind of behind the scenes of reigniting and reclaiming parts that had been buried on the other side of burnout that I'm finally very, very healed about. And it's something that I hadn't felt in years. So that's what really brought me to wanting to create this episode for you. Recently I uncovered my old dancer Instagram, and I realized how much I've always been about autonomy, movement, and self-expression. I'm reclaiming that part of my life, and it's going to be integrated into this business in ways that I never expected. So yes, you will be seeing some dancing Marina if you're on the visual parts of the things. Obviously, you can't see on the podcast, but if you are following over there, you'll be able to see some stuff. So I'm reclaiming this because in this public way, because I want you to see this as your permission slip to reclaim parts of yourself that you may have buried. If there's a part of you that you've been putting on the back burner, whether it's art, dance, music, travel, fun things you love to research, things you love to care for. Maybe you love to garden. You haven't touched a garden in a while. You haven't made a salsa that you love making. Bring it back. Take out that old recipe book. Go to whatever game you haven't seen in a while. It might just be the missing piece of your actual success in your business. As I sorted through these old Instagram posts, I saw myself so much more clearly. Somewhere in there, past Marina wrote, "I can never work for someone again. The 401k is not worth it." And that hit me. It hit me because I have proven to myself over and over again that, number one, I can make well over 10K a month working for myself, like just me and my husband, doing less work than I ever did for a boss. And I've also already proven that any lack of worth came from within, because I only ever got underpaid when I accepted it. Nowadays, I'm not underpaid. And that's the real lesson. You choose what you accept. And when you start seeing every sale, every contract, every decision as a learning experience, you win. So, final thoughts. If you're an employee, treat it like paid education. Learn everything you can and leave. If you're burned out, pay attention to where your energy is going. Burnout isn't about overworking. It's about constantly doing things that don't light you up. And if you're scared to start, know this. The industry is shifting. The biggest regret I hear is, I wish I had started sooner. So, this business was never just about making money. It was about healing, and it was about providing for ourselves and the community. And if you're stuck in burnout, I want you to know that you also don't have to stay there. Burnout doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow erosion of boundaries, passion, and self-worth. The good news is that you can rebuild all of it. Our business didn't just make us money. It helped us heal, right? And if you're feeling stuck, drained, or like you're working for everyone but yourself, it might be time to step back and reassess. So send me an email, hello@marinamars.com. Let me know what resonated with you. And if you're ready to take control of your life, I do have resources to help. So just reach out. Until next time, stay aligned, stay empowered, and keep building a business that fuels you. As always, if you need anything, just let me know.